Control is already gone. Before danger is identified, before context is formed, before any conscious decision is possible, the brain removes the ability to interpret what is happening accurately. What follows feels like action, but it begins with loss of clarity, loss of sequencing, loss of coordination between perception and judgment. The trigger is not panic, it is detection. The moment a situation is classified as threatening, the brain does not wait to understand it. It reassigns control, systems responsible for analysis, simulation, and contextual reasoning are too slow under perceived urgency. They are bypassed, authority is transferred to faster, older circuits designed to act before comprehension is complete. This transition is silent. There is no internal signal that interpretation has been downgraded. The individual does not experience confusion. They experience certainty. The survival instinct does not feel like a fallback system. It feels like decisiveness. The brain creates the sensation of clarity precisely when informational depth has been removed. In ancestral environments, this trade-off was effective. Threats were immediate, simple, and physical. Speed increased survival. In modern emergencies, the structure of danger is different. Systems are layered, consequences are indirect, space, machinery, crowds, and complex feedback loops redefine what safe and dangerous mean. The brain does not update its criteria. It applies inherited rules without revision. At this stage, perception narrows, attention locks onto the most salient cue, not the most informative one. Peripheral data is suppressed. Contradictory signals are ignored. The brain is no longer trying to understand the environment. It is trying to reduce uncertainty as quickly as possible. Accuracy becomes secondary to closure. This is where the first irreversible shift occurs. The system stops recalibrating. Once control has been transferred, higher cognition does not disappear, but it loses veto power. Reasoning may generate alternatives, but instinct has already committed to a trajectory. Decisions are executed before evaluation is complete. The delay required to reassess feels dangerous, even when it is not. The brain interprets hesitation as threat amplification. Emotion follows this same logic. Fear is not amplified for drama. It is simplified. Emotional responses become binary. Act or freeze. Move or escape. Nuance is eliminated because it consumes time. The individual experiences this as urgency, not impairment. The body feels aligned, purposeful, and driven. The critical failure is not that instinct acts. It is that instinct assumes authority over systems designed for complex interpretation. The survival response was never meant to coordinate with modern environments. It was meant to override them. Once activated, it does not negotiate with context, it replaces it. By the time conscious awareness attempts to intervene, the framework for understanding the situation has already been stripped down. What remains is speed without comprehension, action without alignment, movement without strategy. The instinct has not malfunctioned. It has done exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that the environment no longer matches the design assumptions embedded in the system. Once instinctive control is established, the brain commits to a single operational priority: rapid resolution. This does not mean safety. It means termination of uncertainty. The systems that normally evaluate alternatives, simulate outcomes, and integrate new information remain active but subordinate. Speed replaces understanding as the dominant metric. The prefrontal cortex continues to process input, but its influence is reduced. It no longer arbitrates. It annotates. Suggestions may surface, but they arrive too late to alter behavior. The brain interprets any delay as a failure to act, and failure to act is treated as an escalation of threat. The result is a narrowing of viable responses, not because options are unavailable, but because they are filtered out preemptively. This filtering creates a specific distortion. The brain favors actions that feel immediately corrective, even when they do not address the actual source of danger. Movement is prioritized over positioning. Escape is favored over assessment. Familiar patterns override situational logic. The individual experiences momentum, not confusion. Action feels necessary, even when it is misaligned. The hippocampus contributes to this shift by altering how memory is accessed. Under emergency conditions, contextual recall is suppressed. Instead of reconstructing past experiences in detail, the brain retrieves compressed templates, fragments of prior reactions, that resemble the current signal. These templates lack specificity. They provide direction without nuance. The brain is not remembering what worked, it is remembering what ended urgency. This creates a second irreversible transition. From this point on, the brain no longer negotiates between interpretation and reaction. As coordination degrades, internal feedback loops weaken. The brain loses its ability to accurately evaluate the consequences of its own actions in real time. Errors do not register as errors. They register as incomplete actions requiring escalation. When an instinctive response fails to resolve the situation immediately, the brain does not reconsider. It intensifies. This escalation is mechanical. Heart rate increases, breathing accelerates, sensory input becomes more selective. These changes are not meant to improve perception. They are meant to fuel output. The body is preparing for expenditure, not analysis. Cognitive bandwidth contracts further. The capacity to integrate new or contradictory information diminishes. At this stage, the sensation of control often peaks. The individual feels engaged, alert, and decisive. This is not awareness, it is alignment with a simplified objective. The brain has reduced the problem space to something it can act on quickly, even if that space no longer reflects reality. Crucially, modern emergencies punish this simplification. Complex environments require coordination, timing, and restraint. Instinctive responses generate actions that interfere with these requirements. Systems clash. The brain applies force where precision is needed. It accelerates where calibration is required. The survival instinct does not become dangerous by malfunctioning. It becomes dangerous by functioning. In isolation, it is operating without the systems it evolved alongside. And once this isolation is established, regaining coordination is no longer a matter of choice or awareness. At the final stage, instinct no longer operates as a protective override. The brain is now executing behavior without a shared internal model of the situation. Actions are taken that feel internally justified but externally misaligned. Importantly, this outcome is not the result of poor judgment or lack of intelligence. It is the predictable endpoint of a system optimized for ancient conditions, being forced to operate in complex, modern scenarios. The instinct does not adapt in real time. It executes pre-configured rules until resolution or exhaustion. What fails is not courage. What fails is coordination. The brain does not collapse under emergency pressure. It reorganizes around the fastest system available and excludes the rest. Survival instinct does not misfire. It dominates, and domination, in environments that require cooperation between systems, accelerates failure instead of preventing it. The final loss is not physical ability, it is interpretive capacity. The ability to understand what action means in context is removed long before the situation resolves. By the time the outcome becomes visible, the brain has been operating without that capacity for far longer than it appears. The survival Instinct was never designed to keep the individual safe in every environment. It was designed to act when understanding was optional. What disengages first is not strength, but coordination. Which system do you think stops cooperating first?